Alright, so you've implemented content mode, but you want to use meta ads, a meta ads tag, and you're unsure how it all fits together. You're unsure how content mode and meta ads work together. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how I set up meta ads together with content mode. And by the way, this video also applies if you're using tags like TikTok or Pinterest that have a very similar goal as the meta ads tags. Let's dive in. Hey and welcome to the channel. My name is Leon. This channel exists to help you improve your website with your web stats. I want to thank everyone that has been liking my videos and has subscribed to the channel, because that really helps me get these videos out to as many people as I can. As a way to say thank you, I have created a short cheat sheet on how you can grow the traffic that is coming to your site. So whether you have a new domain or an existing domain, if you want to grow your website traffic, just head over to the video description, click the link to download that cheat sheet for free. Also, if you like this video and you want to watch more, just head over to my profile, because I have created a ton of videos over the past year on how to set up Google Analytics, how to set up Google Tag Manager to improve your website. Alright, so we're talking about meta ads with content mode. I have made a couple of videos already about content mode in the past couple of weeks. And there are two in particular that I want to bring to your attention. One is about setting up content mode with CookieBot. And the other is about setting up content mode the manual method that basically works with any cookie banner out there. If you haven't watched those videos, I will link them in the video description, because I will reference them a lot in this video. I do not want to keep repeating myself over and over, because this video would get a little bit too long. So if you haven't watched those, just head over to the video description to find links to those videos. Second thing that I want to note before we dive in is that I am using Google Tag Manager to implement meta ads on my site. So please do not be confused by this, because you might be using a different method of implementing meta ads on your site. You might be using a plugin, or you might be using some other platform integration, or even a hard-coded setup. I'm using Google Tag Manager on, I think, almost all of my setups, because it is platform agnostic. It will use on basically any CMS and any platform out there. And I'm also using it because it gives me a lot of flexibility to change the setup depending on client needs. But know that I am using Google Tag Manager to set up meta ads and not a platform integration or a hard-coded setup. Alright, let me show you the easiest way of adding meta ads to your website with content mode using Google Tag Manager. I'm here in my Google Tag Manager container. I'm going to add a new tag right here. I'm going to call it 0005 meta ads and then page view. By the way, I have a very particular naming convention. I will not go into that right here, but if you're interested in my Google Tag Manager naming conventions, I will put a link in the video description to a full video that I did on that. I'm basically using numbers to structure and organize my Google Tag Manager container. After I've named my tag, I'm going to go into tag configuration. I like to work with the Facebook template tag. So I'm going to find that in the community template gallery, and you can look here for Facebook, and then it will pop up. Right here, it says Facebook Pixel by Facebook Archive. And as you can see, it's already added to my container. But if you haven't done that, you can just click it and then you can add it right here. So the second step here is to add your Facebook Pixel ID. I'm not really the person to explain to you where to find it. So if you do not know where to find your Pixel ID, just go back to the person that governs your meta ads campaigns and ask them for the Pixel ID. Or just go on YouTube. There are many people out there that are more capable in Google Ads than me. I've just added the Pixel ID to my clipboard, so I'm going to paste it in right here. So you could do it like this, where you just add it to the template. But what I like to do here is I like to go into the variables here, and I like to add a new variable that I'm going to call meta ads pixel ID. I'm going to make a constant variable, and I'm going to paste the value right here. So every time I reference this meta ads pixel ID, it will return the right meta ads pixel ID right here. So I'm going to hit save. So the meta ads pixel ID is filled out. I'm going to track a page view, that's the standard, the default. And as a trigger, I'm going to use the initialization all pages trigger. This is basically the default trigger for everything that you're loading to track page views, to initialize, for instance, Google Analytics or the meta ads pixel. So now I'm going to hit save. And let's do one more. So I'm going to add a new tag just to track a conversion. So I'm going to call it 0501 meta ads contact. So I'm going to track my contact form. I'm going to use the same template, so you don't have to add it twice. So it will be under custom and then Facebook pixel. I'm going to look for my meta ads pixel ID. So this is the advantage of using the variable. You can just reference it again. You do not have to fill out and look up your meta ads pixel ID all the time. I don't want to track a page view. I want to track a contact form. So I'm going to track a contact event. I'm going to make a trigger for this that I'm going to call form dash contact. All right, and I'm going to do it like this. A DOM ready. I know it's a thank you page. Page path contains contact thank you. There you go. And I'm gonna hit save. So this is how I set up meta ads. Now let's go over how you link this with consent mode, because by default, these tags will fire regardless if consent has been given or not. What I like to use is the consent overview. So the consent overview can be referenced via this little icon up here. If you don't see this icon, just head over to admin, to the container settings, and check this little box right here, enable consent overview. If it isn't checked, you can just check it and then hit save, go back into your workspace, go into tags, and then you'll probably need to refresh your page first. But then after you've done all that, you will find this consent overview right here at the top. And if you open that up, you'll see all the tags that where consent is not configured yet in a little box. As you can see, I've configured consent already for a lot of my own tags, but these tags I've just added in to show you how to set up meta ads. So I'm going to check all of these two, and I'm going to say edit consent settings right here. And here I need to say require additional consent for the tag to fire, because unlike Google Analytics, which has a lot of built-in consent checks already, the meta ads pixel or the Facebook pixel template doesn't check for consent. You need to configure that yourself. So we can do that by clicking right here and then say require additional consent for tag to fire, and then say add storage. So this will prevent the tag from loading until add storage has been given. So now I'm going to hit save. Yes, I'm going to hit save. So consent is configured. Let's test if all this is working or not. So I'm going to hit preview. I'm going to connect to my own site. Yeah, there you go. All right, so we're currently testing the scenario where a user hasn't refused cookies, but it also hasn't allowed all cookies. We're testing the scenario where there is simply no cookie preferences set yet. So let's see how our meta ads setup responds to this. So I'm going to go into Tag Assistant. And I'm starting at message 0. So this is the first message. And I'm going up until I reach this initialization moment to just see what is happening. So here the on-page defaults have been set. And I'm currently saying denied to all marketing categories. And the rest I've set to granted. And this is the current state. So like all marketing categories are denied. So at initialization, this is the moment where our meta ads tag should be fired or shouldn't be fired at this point, but it is the trigger that we chose for our meta ads tag. So let's see how it responds to this. So on initialization, it says tags blocked by consent settings. So meta ads pixel has not fired because of the consent settings. So because we said that it only can load if add storage is granted, and it's currently denied. So that is what we want. Now let's refuse cookies and let's reload the page to see how it responds to users that actually refuse cookies, because we want to check if it doesn't load by accident. So I'm going back into Tag Assistant. I'm going into initialization because that's the trigger that we chose. And we see that the add storage consent is set currently to denied, and I'm also seeing that the meta ads tag is currently blocked by the consent settings. So it functions like it should. Let's finally check also the scenario where a user gives consent for add storage. So I'm going to go into my developer tools. By the way, if you do not know how to do this, just head over to my other videos where I explain in detail why and how I use this. I'm going to go into the application tab. I'm going to go under cookies and I'm going to remove my cookie preferences. I'm going to reload the page to open up the consent banner again. Now I'm going to hit allow all cookies and I'm going to refresh the page to see if these preferences have been stored. So this is my last page that I loaded. On initialization, I'm going to check the consent settings and it says add storage is currently granted. And on my tags, I see that all tags have been fired, including meta ads. So this is the easiest way of setting up meta ads with consent mode. There is just one problem with this setup, and it's called delayed consent. Let me explain what this means. All right, in order to show you what this really means, I have removed all my cookie preferences, so my cookie banner is here again. And this is the scenario when a user lands on your site for the very first time. And they haven't denied cookies, they haven't accepted cookies. Let's examine what happens if I accept cookies. So I accept cookies right now. I start using the page. Let me go back into Tag Assistant to see if meta ads has been fired. If I go into the summary and I go under tags not fire, I will see that my meta ads page view tag did not fire on this page yet. Why is that? The moment when I entered the page, there was this initialization moment that we used for our Facebook pixel trigger. Well, when that fired, it saw no consent yet. And that was correct because it was the first page load. We got the cookie banner first. Then after seconds, we accepted the cookies. So the cookies were accepted somewhere here. But the initialization trigger only responds to kind of very early in the page load, to this initialization moment. And our meta ads tag is linked to that moment. So the current setup only works when we reload the page. It needs like a second page load for another initialization moment to appear, and then it will load because at the second initialization moment, the consent is granted because we granted it on the first page load. So you understand that you will lack some data here because it only tracks the second page load. And the second page load might not happen. Somebody might enter your site, read a little bit and then leave. And then you did not track that person. And it is important to note here that all Google tags, so for instance the GA4 config, will respond. So it has built-in functionality that even if somebody gives consent after the initialization, then it will still work. It will still respond to that. So GA page view will load, but all non-Google tags will not respond. So you could do some extra work in order for the meta ads pixel to load immediately after somebody has clicked give consent. And that is what I'm going to show you in the next 2 chapters. I'm going to show you how to do this in CookieBot. And to be honest, that's actually quite easy. And I'm also going to show you how I would set this up using my manual method. And it is kind of a follow-up to the first 2 videos that I made on how to set up consent mode. So how can you add delayed consent to your meta ads tags? And by the way, this also will work for TikTok or Pinterest or similar tags that you are using in your setup. All right, how can we add delayed consent to our meta ads tags? Let me show you first how you would do this in a CookieBot environment. So there's a link in the video description. If you haven't watched this, go watch that first. And this is really a follow-up to that video. I have the exact setup that I have from that video right here. So CookieBot, my CookieBot tag is right here. Consent mode is enabled in this case. I have some defaults set and the CookieBot is set at consent initialization all pages. So let's go into preview mode. I've removed all my cookie preferences, so the CookieBot banner will show up in a moment. Tag Assistant looks like this. So we're at 11. Let's click allow all and see what happens. So some data layer messages have been added, and this is the data layer message that I'm really interested in. Because cookie consent update is the message that happens like right after consent has been given or denied. So this is really a great alternative to use instead of the initialization trigger. The only downside is that it happens a little bit later and in the page views right after. So if I refresh or click a link on the site, the cookie consent update message happens right here. So on all pages, the cookie consent update message will happen and is the most actual state of the current consent. So using this instead of the initialization trigger will make sure that meta ads is always loading even on the first page right after consent has been given. You could implement it like this. So I'm going to go into my meta ads page view tag. I'm going to remove the initialization trigger. I'm going to add a new trigger. I'm going to call it event dash, and now I'm going to go into here. I'm going to copy this name right here, cookie consent update. So this is the name. Under trigger configuration, I'm going to add a custom event and I'm going to say cookie consent update, and it can fire on all custom events with this name. Let's hit save and let's see what happens. Let's go into preview mode to see what happens, and let me remove my cookie preferences real quick. So I'm going to go into application cookies. I'm going to remove my cookie preferences here, refreshing the page to make sure that the banner pops up again. So right here, we're at 29. I'm going to hit allow all. to see what happens. And at cookie consent update, yeah, the meta ads page view tag has fired. Let's also test the scenario where we refuse cookies. So I'm going to go into application, remove my cookie consent variable to make sure that the cookie banner pops up again. I'm going to refuse all cookies. Let's see what happens. So cookie consent update runs, but now it's being blocked by my consent settings. So even though the consent has been updated, if I go into consent, the ad storage has been set to denied because I refused all cookies. So this tag tried to fire, but it's blocked by my consent settings. So this is how you would set up meta ads with consent mode, where it functions even when there was delayed consent given in Google Tag Manager. Well, now let's go over how you would set this up using my manual method. Alright, let me show you how to set up meta ads with consent mode using my manual setup. And this is basically an extension to the second video that I did on how to set up consent mode on basically any cookie banner out there. So if you haven't watched that video, just head over to the video description. You'll find a link to that video as well. If you want to add meta ads, you can do it just like we did in the last chapter. You can just add it like this, meta ads pixel on initialization all pages. And if you make sure that the consent overview settings, that you set it to ad storage, it will be blocked until consent has been given. And this could be enough. So let's hit preview mode and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so we're in my site. We're in the scenario where consent has not been given yet and we also didn't deny it. Let's go into my setup and let's see what's going on. So the default settings have been applied here. If I go into initialization, the ad storage is denied and therefore my meta ads pixel is blocked. Now, if I accept cookies, currently the meta ads pixel still hasn't fired yet because it's firing only on initialization all pages. So it's currently blocked. I need to click to a next page or refresh the page and then it will work. It will fire on the next initialization because consent has already been given, ad storage, and then the meta ads pixel fires. So this could be fine. And this is probably the easiest way to get meta ads up and running. But the only downside is that it doesn't take delayed consent into account. It only operates on like the next page view, on the second page view after consent has been given. If you want it to work right after consent has been given, you have two options. The easiest one is probably to do a force refresh on every cookie banner update. So if somebody clicks on accept all or denial, you just force refresh the entire page. That will load your meta ads pixel even if it's on initialization all pages. I'm also going to show you how to set this up using some custom triggers. So because we're using a manual setup, we need to do a lot of work ourselves. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is not exactly the easiest tutorial that I made. So I want to make sure to say that up front. And if you find this a little bit too complex, I think this setup that I just showed you will work just fine. The only downside is that you do not track delayed consent on the first page load. You need a second page load in order for meta ads to work. Having said all that, let's go over how I would do this extra work in order to make sure that meta ads is loaded exactly the right time after consent has been given. So the first thing that I do here in my setup, I have the default command, the update command. I make another tag, I call it consent mode delayed consent. And this tag runs whenever somebody accepts cookies. So I've made a custom trigger. It is click element matches CSS selector. And then I made this CSS selector. It's a click on all elements. I've made an entire video. It's, I think, about 20 or 30 minutes long on how you make these kinds of triggers. So I'm not going to explain to you too much in detail, but what I did here is, let me bring up my cookie banner again. I've basically inspected my accept all button. So inspect, and here there's a button with ID. I made a trigger to fire every time somebody clicks that accept button. Well, whenever somebody clicks the accept button, I'm running a little bit of a script. So I'm gonna wait 250 milliseconds and then I'm gonna say GTM cookies accepted. Well, why do I want to wait 250 milliseconds? Well, the moment when somebody clicks is the moment that the cookie banner gets a signal. Okay, there's consent. So the cookie banner needs a little bit of time to process that consent has been given and to write that consent in the cookie. So it's going to write it in a cookie. So let's click accept. Yeah, there it is, cookie consent. So it needs a little bit of time to write down the cookie. The second thing that I do, I give it a little bit of time. So 250 milliseconds should be fine. Then I push data layer event GTM cookies accepted. I will just copy this script in the video description for you to copy and paste it. The second thing that I do here is I run the update command on that moment that we just created. So not only on consent initialization, but also on the event that I just made. So the event that I fire right here after 250 milliseconds, that is the moment where I want the update command to run. So I made a second trigger. It looks like this, GTM cookies accepted. The third thing that I did is in the update command, I checked the box push data layer event. So this will fire another data layer event that is called GTM consent update. And then the last step that I need to do here is I'm going to change the meta ads pixel. I'm going to change the trigger. I'm going to remove the initialization all pages, and I'm going to put that here. I already made it, GTM consent update. I'm going to hit save. Let's go over how this functions in a little bit more detail. So I'm going to hit preview. Let's delete my cookie preferences so the cookie banner pops up again. All right, let's see what happens here. So on initialization, nothing happens. We don't have consent yet. And because I've fired the update command, I also see this GTM consent update. And this is the command that we've used for meta ads. And currently it's blocked by consent settings. And that is correct because consent has not been given. Well, let's click allow all and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm gonna allow all cookies. So first of all, I see a click event right here. And the interesting thing, on the click event, the ad storage is still set to denied because this is the moment when people have clicked accept all. So the cookie banner still needs a little bit of time after that to process that consent has been given. But on this click command, I run my little script that waits for 250 milliseconds and then cookies accepted. So this will wait for 250 milliseconds and then it will fire a GTM cookies accepted command into the data layer. So that is this command. This command I have set as a second trigger to update the consent mode. So that's what's happening right here. And this tag, I have told this tag to push a data layer event whenever that is ready. So that's the third command. And this is the command that I'm also using for meta ads. And right now, cookie consent has been granted. So GTM consent update has run at the start of the page, but it has run again because we clicked give consent. And right now, every time I press refresh, the consent update will run again. So this is really a good tag for the meta ads pixel to fire. Let's test if the scenario where people refuse consent is also working. So I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna press refuse consent. So currently consent is set to denied. I'm gonna refresh the page and consent update. Yeah, ad storage is set to denied. So meta ads pixel is still blocked by consent settings because I've just denied all cookies. Alright, that's it for today. I hope this video was clear. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. Also, if you like this video and you want to watch more, just head over to my profile. I have created tons of videos the past year on how to set up Google Tag Manager, how to set up Google Analytics in order to improve your website. Alright, thanks for watching and have a nice day. See you in the next video. Goodbye.